DOCRATIC. Everything you need to know about the Vigo Demi heart. So sit back, relax, and watch from anywhere. Get ready for a chat with a chair.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Etling, Chair of the Vigo County Democratic Party. It is a delight to have you with us. Welcome to this edition of Chat with the Chair. We got an awesome show this evening. We're not going to waste any time. Get right to our first guest. Tell our viewers who you are.
I'm Bill Berry. I'm the fire chief for the Terre Haute Fire Department.
Chief, welcome into the chat here. We are delighted you could join us. We hope that you might be able to tell our viewers a little about your background.
Well, we're sitting around talking about that a little bit here before this aired. Been on the fire department for about 28 years now. It's a little over 28 years. I actually started when I was in college. I was in my last semester of college, and I had to quit that last semester of college. I eventually went back and got my bachelor's degree, but I worked for probably the first 3 or 4 years, on fire company, and then went to EMT school and became a paramedic. And then worked as a paramedic on the ambulance. I actually worked with the ex-fire chief, Jeff Fisher, for a few years.
Heard of him.
That guy. And we were partners for at least 2 or 3 years, maybe a little longer. And then I had the opportunity, Judy Anderson became mayor, and she appointed me to the EMS chief job. I worked in that position for 3 or 4 years, and then came back on company, and I've been on company ever since. Worked as a captain at 2 of the busiest firehouses in the city. That's Station 3 on 13th and Chase. And I worked there for about 6 or 7 years, and then I went to Station 2 on 9th and College, and then obviously became the fire chief here about 2 months ago.
Oh, that's great. Well, you blew through some things here, Chief, so we're going to talk a little bit about you grew up in Terre Haute, did you not?
Yep.
Talked about where you grew up in.
Well, I was actually born in Charleston, South Carolina.
Is that right?
Yeah, Army brat. My dad was in the military, so I was born there. Probably moved here when I was 2 years old. Lived here my whole life. Graduated Terre Haute North. Attended ISU and graduated from Indiana State. And yeah, I've been a resident here. I've lived on the east side for the last 22 years out in Woodridge. And
nice. So originally from South Carolina.
South Carolina.
That's a little tidbit that we hadn't realized.
So
you got that southern blood in you a little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit.
I don't have that southern tan,
Well, so grew up the North Patriot, then matriculated Indiana State. And what was it that drew you to the fire department?
Just like I said, in an interview with, the news the day that I was sworn in or appointed as fire chief, had no intentions whatsoever to become a firefighter. I ended up getting my degree in journalism.
Is that right?
Yeah, I wrote for a lot of outdoor magazines and newspapers, wrote for the Tribune Star for a little while, did my internship there.
You might take this show over before we're done here with that background. I mean, I didn't know.
Who knew? Had no intentions whatsoever of being a fireman. Of course, I had half dozen friends that were
You must have had the best fire reports on the department, though, with that background of yours.
Pretty good writing.
Pretty good writing, yeah, I bet.
I can't spell, but that's what copy is for.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, that's neat. So, did you have to do any particular training in particular, transitioning from that background to get into working as a firefighter?
Well, that training's on-the-job training back then. That was
in right?
1993. So, yeah, a lot of on-the-job training. I just left here, left City Hall probably 2 or 3 hours ago. Swore in. We appointed 8 new members on the fire department, and they will start training tomorrow. And we've got like a 4-month academy that those recruits will go through, and that's just for the fire side of it. After that, go to EMT school, and after that, I go to paramedic school. So back in 1993, it really wasn't like that. You know, we had a training chief. I came on with one other person. We worked with that training chief a little bit, but mainly we just went out on company with some of the guys on some of the different crews and just did a lot of on-the-job training. And we had more fires back then, so it was a lot of real, like, learning as you're actually fighting fires, so it was different.
Do you recall when you came on the department, the size of the department?
It was probably, it was not too, it was a little bit bigger than it is today. We had more members. I believe back then we had about 160 members. Today I believe right now we're at about 145. So with these new guys, these new recruits, we'll be up to 153, but we haven't been at that 160 number for a long time. It's been a while.
I want to backtrack a little bit and talk about your family, but I'm curious too with regard to the decision to get into firefighting. Was there anybody that in your family or friend that you had looked up to, considered a role model to get into this area?
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, the only reason I applied was because I had friends on the job. They applied, they got on, and I was like, something I might look at as a fallback, if I don't get a job right out of college. So of course they called me before I finished college. So, and it was Chief Paul Mason. He was actually a friend of the family's, and he called me one day and said, "Hey, do you want this job?" And actually I was still a kid, and I was like, "Man, I got to go talk to Mom about this," So I talked it over with her, and I still can remember, a lot of older guys, their salaries was a lot less back then, but I still remember my salary in 1993, and it was $17,700.
There you go.
And my mom was like, "How many people do you know graduate college and start out at $17,700 a year?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's a lot of money, Mom. I might try this." So I actually did, and of course that's poverty level, So it was decent money back then.
Well, all the mothers that are watching are smiling that you're giving your mother a shout out and to her for that advice. That's great.
Absolutely.
So talk about your family.
Well, my mom and dad. I've got a very small family. My mom, obviously, she's retired. She worked at CBS for a number of years. She retired. She was actually in the union. She was one of the union leaders back then, and my dad worked at Chesty's and just was hardworking, parents. But they were divorced, and I have a sister. I have a younger sister, Lisa. She lives out in Portland, Oregon, or out in Gresham, Oregon. And she's got a little niece. I've got my son. That's pretty much the bulk of my family.
There you go.
Now I do have, some aunts and uncles. Actually, my uncle, has always been really close to him. Is Steve Barnhart. He was a lieutenant with the Sheriff's Department for 43 years.
Yeah.
And I always respected him. Was a great guy. He's, him and my Aunt Kathy, they're still around. So.
And your son's quite a celebrity.
My son, he thinks he is. He thinks he's a big shot. Yeah, he's 16 now.
Hard to believe.
Yeah, it's flying by. But what he does, he acts a little bit. So he's done some acting. He's got an agent up in Chicago with Lily's Talent Agency. His agent's Al Oliver, and he's been doing some commercials and does some little TV here and there, and does some, he's done a bunch of actually films, but he's done a bunch of background work. But he doesn't do background work anymore. He's just taking speaking roles and getting a lot of auditions. So this kid's gonna be able to take rejection real well from the girls in later in life, because when you're doing auditions, it's usually 1 out of 20 is pretty good.
Well, speaking of rejection, I got to admit to you, Chief, we actually tried to book him first, and we couldn't get through his agent, so we got you. So I'm just telling you that, but we're happy that you could join us.
I'm always second best.
Your predecessor, Chief Fisher, was a fairly regular guest here on the chat, and you know, he was never short for words. So I think that you've got some big shoes to fill. Now, speaking of the chief, though, too, former chief, though, he always made it a point and to be very dapper when he showed up. So I didn't know if that's something that bar's been set out there with the former chief. That's something that you're also following in his footsteps.
Well, I think I'm going to follow in my own footsteps. I'm going to make my own and do my own thing. You know, I'm going to take a lot of what I learned from him, and you know, I'm going to elaborate on it a little bit. But I've got a lot of my own ideas too.
Well, I'm speaking though about your attire though, because you're underselling yourself here, and you know, I have seen you, in fact, in another tremendous skill you have, your fishing coat shirt. I mean, I'm jealous. I want to know the story behind the fishing coat shirt.
Oh, well, I'm the coach for Terre Haute North's bass fishing team.
Yes.
We have bass fishing teams in all three of our high schools, and honestly, I do not know another high school in the state that actually has an official organized bass fishing team that's a true sports team. Now, they've got a lot of clubs, but I was fortunate enough when I came here, or I'm sorry, I was fortunate enough when Dr. Hayworth came here to meet him right off the bat. And the first word, you know, after we started mingling and talking a little bit, the first thing he said to me was, "Do you know we have a bass fishing team here?" And that bass fishing team was a club at West Vigo. And I was like, "Yeah, you know, my son fishes on it. You know, West Vigo opened up to anybody around in any of the high schools, or and opened it up to any of the kids, and they could all fish on West Vigo's club." You know, and Dr. Hayworth was like, I want a team. I want a team sport in each of the high schools." And I'm like, "Okay, we can get that on." So actually, it was him. I mean, he came here with the idea of bringing all these non-traditional sports to Vigo County. You know, instead of, you know, us on our cell phones and watching Facebook and all this stuff, get out and actually do something.
Yeah.
And he's brought bowling in, he's brought bass fishing in, he's brought crew in, he wants to get archery in and all this other stuff. So I was fortunate enough, he asked me if I'd coached, you know, North's team, and, you know, it was sort of overwhelming at first because I had like 100 kids show up at the first 2 or 3 meetings, and I'm like, I can't do this. There's no way, you know, I can't get enough people to go out in bass boats and, you know, volunteer their time. And what we do is we have 2 kids in each boat, so you know, that would be 50 boats out there each weekend, you know. So I just didn't have that. I was just overwhelmed with it. So yes, I'm North's bass fishing coach.
What about the shirt? I mean,
shirts?
That was something.
The shirt.
Is that your design or not?
That's, you know, we designed it with, you know, all of our sponsors.
All right.
You know, the sponsors are, you know, bend over backwards for the high school and college teams.
Our viewers out there who haven't seen it, they've got to see the gear you guys are wearing. I mean, it's sweet.
Yeah.
Right?
They're sharp. Yeah.
I mean, I'd say former Chief Fisher would be envious of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be terrible. Yeah, I mean,
he has nothing on our back.
No, that's what I said. So next time, maybe we'll have you brand
he can come in here with his old retiree shirt, and I'll wear my bass fishing shirt.
There you go.
Have a pole out there. You know?
So I want to just commend you for the attire. That was, and you know, I'm a pretty modest guy, as you can tell from the branding for the Chat with the Chair blazer here. So
I like that.
Yeah.
So like Chevy Chase.
So Chevy Chase, I haven't heard that one. But you're taking shots at me just like the former chief, so you've got that going for you. So
Okay.
so we get back to the firework here, and so of course when you came on the department, they just kind of told you to go figure it out. So a little different now that you're the chief, and all that's particularly associated with the training that's going on. So talk to our viewers about all that's going on there.
Well, you know, as far as the new recruits,
Yes.
The new recruits, Kyle Pettyjohn's my training chief.
Okay.
He will have each and every one of them out there tomorrow morning, and they'll be starting from day one. The academy, our training academy is about 3 or 3.5 months. And they'll be doing all types of rescue training. They'll be doing, ropes training, live fire burns, fire training, driver training in the engines, ladders, setting up aerials. I mean, just anything that would relate to firefighting. They were going to do a hazmat tech class, but we had to sort of back that up because we had to set that date ahead of time. And when Emperor's finally gave me the okay to hire these, to say we'll give the hire date, it sort of fell right in the middle of it. So that hazmat tech class is going on right now. So they're going to miss out on that, but they'll be able to do it again next year. So
how's the size of this class compared to other classes?
Lately, it's been about the same.
Okay.
Lately, we have anywhere between 8 and 12 recruits. In the last, I would say, in the last 10 to 15 years, we've tried to keep it at that. We don't want to have it too small where it takes up a lot of resources and we're only training a couple people. So we try to wait to hire one time when we need anywhere from 6 to 12 to 15 people. Instead of putting on 2 small classes, we'll just hire them all at once and put on one decent sized class. And 8's about enough for the training chief to handle.
So will these recruits be in the firehouse right away, or do they have to complete that training?
No, we're thinking about that right now because all recruits, everybody in the last 12 years on this job has had to become a paramedic. Now, back when I came on the job, I had to become an EMT. Everybody had to become an EMT. Paramedic sort of like 3 steps up from an EMT. And my EMT class was, back in the day, was 3 months. Paramedic class was 2 years. So it's a lot more training.
So is that a requirement specific to the Terre Haute Fire Department, or is that a national?
Specific to the Terre Haute Fire Department.
Is that right? So what's the mindset behind that?
Well, because EMS is the bulk of our runway. I mean, obviously we have fire engines running on tiered responses with our ambulances. Our ambulances are staged on the outside and they come in. So we've got firehouses on the outside, on the inside. So if there's an ALS run, an advanced run, a run where there's a stroke or a CPR or chest pain or something like that, we consider that a serious run. So we send an engine and an ambulance together with the hopes that the engine gets there first, can start their treatment, and the ambulance gets there and continue the treatment and take them to the hospital. So the paramedicine is pretty much the future of all fire services. I mean, it's what, it justifies our existence, really, because, homes are built better, sprinkler systems in there. We have less and less fires. We have tons of EMS runs. I'm not saying we don't have fires, because we have plenty of fires in Terre Haute. We've got plenty of fires here. But we have more EMS runs than we do fire runs. So we make, here in Terre Haute, we make anybody who comes on become a paramedic within the first 5 years of their employment.
That's great.
And it's just it's just one more benefit for the citizens in our community.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're going to get they know that they're going to get a paramedic not only on the ambulance. Well, they're going to get 2 paramedics on the ambulance. All of our ambulances have 2 paramedics on them, but they'll probably get a paramedic on an engine coming up there sooner. So paramedics are just trained better. They have more. They can do more things. They can administer drugs. They can do a lot of advanced life saving.
So that training is all being done in-house as well?
Yeah. Well, we use our instructors,
okay,
but we have a business out of Bloomington called Pelham, and we also sometimes use Ivy Tech, both of those 2 paramedic schools. It just depends. I mean, sometimes we've used one, sometimes we've used the other, but if a lot of times when we've sent them to Ivy Tech in the past, we've sent students there to actually get their associate's degree. I mean, it's just a couple more classes and they can do that. So I don't remember exactly where the last 4 or 5 classes have, if they went to Ivy Tech or Pelham, but I know in the last 4 or 5 we've used both of them.
So in the veterans, is there continuing education that goes on as well? Is that a requirement on the department?
For EMS?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got, I mean, those are national certifications where, EMTs have to do 40 or 50 hours of continuing education every 2 years. Paramedics have to do 70 or 80. I'm sort of off on our numbers. I can't really remember what they were. But then again, they also have to do CPR and ACLS and their ITLS, which is their trauma life support. We're also doing a lot of PALS, which is our pediatric advanced life support. So we've got a lot of different classes that these paramedics have to go to and keep those certifications up to continue with their education all the time.
So when Paul Mason called you about this position, did you ever envision you were going to be the chief of that department one day?
No, not at all. No, that was back then. I mean, the office for the fire department was up at Station 7, right up there by Menards. And they actually had like just a couple little rooms back there. The chief, the assistant chief, and they had a couple secretaries in there. Now that's where the squad ambulance guys hang out at Station 7. So we built this. Actually, Paul Mason built I believe he started with the pole barn out there for the shop, for the maintenance division of the fire department, fix our trucks, fix our ladder trucks and stuff like that. When I came on, the maintenance division was the old Station 8 right there on 19th and Wabash, which is Habitat for Humanity.
There you go, yeah.
So he built that pole barn as the maintenance building. And then when Judy Anderson became the mayor, they added the offices to it.
And you're referencing that on North 1st Street, which is
Yes.
where your office is located.
Right, 25 years.
Okay, what else is in that building?
We have the shop still
Okay.
for the maintenance division.
All right.
We have my office. We have my deputy chief, who's Matt Likens. Great guy, very, very smart, bringing a lot to the table. He's going to work out well.
Great.
And we've got the IPI division, which is the Investigation, Prevention, and Inspection division. And Greg Lawson heads that up. Obviously, they inspect fires. They go out during Fire Prevention Month, and they do prevention stuff for the schools. And they do inspections on businesses like your office here. Are you up to date?
Absolutely. No question about it.
I'll check your fire extinguisher on the way out. So those are the offices up there.
I think actually the former chief checked it out when he was here. I think he cited me for something. So yeah, it was very, very rough.
Okay.
But I was a little too rough with him that day. So I'm being exceptionally nice to you because I don't need any more citations from the fire department. But so in making the decision to pursue being the chief, did you have specific goals in mind for the department? And that's not to say anything negative about anybody else, but I assume that everybody's got, like you say, their own style and their own ideas.
Absolutely. My number one goal, well, had many goals, but my number one goal to move the department forward, I guess one of the big projects I wanted to see happen is a water rescue team. I've told you I was at Station 6 the last 6 or 7 years.
Yes.
And of course, being right there, I'm right across, right hop, skip, and a jump from the river, right there from Fairbanks Park. And we went on numerous water rescues. Now, fortunately, none of them were serious. And it was, and Sugar Creek over there has a fantastic water rescue team. I mean, those guys train, they know what they're doing, but of course they're volunteers. So, when they get the call, they've got to wait for other guys to come in and get to the scene. And that's who we've always used. And we'll always use them. I mean, they're a fantastic resource. We want to do whatever we can with them, and hopefully they'll help us in any way we we need help with. But the water rescue team for the fire department, since Terre Haute's like the biggest fire department in West Central Indiana, there's no reason for us to. We've got that river right out back. We've got numerous parks in town with ponds in them. Just, not too long ago, took over Maple Avenue Park. There's a lake out there, and I used to fish that all the time when I was young. Sneak in there fishing. But we've got these lakes, and we've got a lot of waterways that we need to protect. And our citizens, our community deserves a water rescue team, because we can get there. We're right there. And I plan on stationing it out at Station 2.
Okay.
And
so these people you handpick then for that, or
no,
they volunteer?
No, not handpicked, because you have to go through numerous classes to be
okay.
to work on this team.
All right.
There's technician levels in pretty much any aspect of rescue, machine rescue, hazmat, swiftwater rescue, rope tech. So you go through awareness classes, you have to get that cert, then you have to go to operation classes, and you have to go to tech classes. Tech is sort of about the highest you go in those. So you have to become a swiftwater rescue technician. And before you can be a swiftwater rescue technician, you have to be a rope rescue technician. So there's a process, and there's prerequisites for all of it. So I've got numerous guys already trained as swiftwater rescue techs and rope rescue techs. We're putting on some classes this summer, and with what we have on the department, 150 guys we have, we've got plenty to make this happen. We just need to get some resources. And, I've talked to the mayor about a water rescue boat. He knows I'm aware of that, or he's aware of, that that's something I'm interested in, and I think we're going to do it.
So what would be the time frame you think to make that a reality?
If you're putting a time frame on me, my goal is to have that up and established by the first of the year.
Right.
Hopefully sooner, and if not, maybe in the spring of next year.
So with the members of that team, will they get the cool shirts like your bass fishing team has or not?
That would be fantastic.
It might be a selling point.
Put Mercury on there.
Maybe tell the mayor that he might want one of those, and that might be the thing that puts him over the top in your boat. I
think we could.
That's it's just an idea. We got a lot of ideas on the show here. You come in and chat, and we just kind of brainstorm things, so bounce things off each other, and you'll be just amazed at how much you'll forget when you leave. Don't want any of that to apply to anything we're trying to do. So that's a great idea. What other goals do you have?
So obviously, the 46 corridor is moving out there. I mean, we all know that. It's going to boom. Greg's going to build that casino, and I wish him the best. I think that's going to be fantastic for Terre Haute. But we need a firehouse out there, no doubt. And the mayor's aware of that. We've got a couple sites picked out. Before I ever came up here in this chief position, they had already talked about, a firehouse out there. So it's not my idea. It's been in the plans for years. I mean, this has been in the plans ever since, they annexed that area out there.
Sure.
So it's long overdue. And, with how much progress they've got going on out there, after that casino comes out there, I'm sure it's just going to boom even more. So we make numerous runs out there, and our closest firehouse is Station 8, right there across from where your gunner lives. So that's a long haul, getting out there. So we need to, give the public, what they deserve out there. We need to get that firehouse.
Chief, how many firehouses are there currently?
We have 8 firehouses.
And how does that compare to when you came on?
8 firehouses.
Same number, okay.
Exact same number.
All right.
Now, in between there, we lost a couple. One of the mayors back in the day shut a couple down.
Right.
But then the new mayor replaced that mayor and opened it back up. So we're at the same 8 that I was in when we first started.
That's great. What other goals you got in mind?
Well, we need to. I've established a grant writing team. If we can.
You'd be great on that. Your background in journalism, it'll be like short stories. It'll be like, holy cow, let's give this guy a grant, and
as long as somebody can edit it for me.
Pulitzer or something. I mean, you'll get some prize for that, won't you? Yeah.
But we'll see.
You never know.
Yeah, I mean,
trying to keep up with your son. I mean, he's a celebrity in the family, so.
I think if I can take the burden off the taxpayers, that's pretty big.
That's
pretty
huge.
Big deal, isn't it?
Great idea.
So if we can, get one grant, that's a big deal. 2 grants, fantastic. We've got guys on the job that have written grants in the past. I wrote numerous grants in the past, but back in the day, you know, it was a little tougher than it is today. Now we've got our international union, you know, our firefighters work under Local 758, and they've got so much at their fingertips as far as when you do apply for these grants, then they will actually review them. They've got people that will review all these grants, make sure that the narration's right, everything's right, and their success on doing that is like way up there. So we can utilize them, and that's a big asset. So hopefully, you know, we get this team established, and, you know, we can tap in. I've already got guys coming to me that showed me these grants that I've never even heard of.
It's too bad you didn't have too much on your plate to get accomplished here as the new chief.
Well, you know, those are goals. Those are probably the biggest goals I've got. Other than, you know, keep the morale, keep the guys happy, keep them safe, keep the community safe. I mean, the obvious things.
You're real excited about being the chief, aren't you?
I am. I
That's great.
absolutely am.
Absolutely, that's
Yeah.
great. It shows through, and they're going to be doing great things for the department. So, any advice you'd give our viewers? Anything particularly with regard to all your extensive background with the fire department that you'd want to tell our viewers?
Some advice?
Yes. Well, with regard to fire safety, anything particularly as we're getting into the summer months.
That's great, Joe. Actually, you know, I was talking to Susie about this the other day, so I was wanting to put some PSAs together. So, one of the big issues we have, obviously, is when we're on a fire scene. Obviously, you know, if we're on a fire scene, then, you know, the engines are in the middle of the road and everything. We have so many people zigzagging through our fire engines, and, you know, I cringe every time I see it. You know, first of all, it's illegal to drive over our fire hoses. I mean, because we could have men inside, and if you're damaging the hoses, they can lose water, and, you know, somebody can get killed. So we don't want to see that happen, and I know our fellow, you know, police officer buddies will definitely ticket people for running over our fire hoses. But the biggest thing is we want to make sure that they're safe. We want to make sure that our guys are safe. So if we have a fire in downtown Terre Haute, I mean, it doesn't take anything to go around the block.
Avoid it, yeah.
I mean, you know, so you know, I know people want to see what's going on and all that stuff. That's fine. You know, park over here and you know, walk on the other side of the sidewalk. You know, stay out of, you know, harm's way, and look at it from there. But don't zigzag through all of our fire engines. That is, I see that every day, and it goes through me. And, you know, the old, you know, back in the day when I was in driver's ed, I'm sure you remember this, we were always taught to pull over on the right side of the road when a fire engine or an ambulance or a police officer or anybody was going down the road, and that doesn't happen a lot anymore.
I wasn't sure they're still teaching that. I mean, is that not being taught? Or?
It's rough, you know, so, you know, we need to get to the scene because somebody's having a bad day.
Absolutely.
So we just would appreciate it if you pull over the best you can so our guys can get through, our guys and gals. We've got gals on the fire department, so
yes.
I got to be quick with that.
But the sirens are definitely working. I mean, they're definitely as
they're
loud as they've
working.
ever been.
They're working. We've got a lot more lights. I actually ordered more. So
Did you?
We've got plenty of lights all over those
Nice.
vehicles, and you know, loud
Those are
sirens
good.
and horns.
Those are good PSAs to put out there. So we're glad to help that message, and those are excellent points. But it's been a delight to have you in here. We'd love to have you back, and when we get on our new set, maybe we get you in with bring out some of your gear that you can show, and
absolutely.
If any of those PSAs, if you need any assistance, we'd be happy to come out and assist with those. But we're really glad that you're the chief, and I know you're excited about it, and it sounds like it's just going to be a continuation of some great things going on with the Terre Haute Fire Department, and again, we'll be seeing you out and about in the community, and glad that we've got new recruits that we're getting trained. So, Chief, any last thoughts for our viewers?
I appreciate you having me on here, Joe.
All right.
It's an honor. I mean, we always talk shop.
Absolutely.
And, you know, fishing and football and, you know, all that stuff. So it's an honor that you invited me up here. And,
thank you.
You know, I'll be glad to come back.
Absolutely. Love to have you. We're excited you're the chief, and new fire chief, Bill Berry. Congratulations. And again, we appreciate you coming in to chat with us this evening, and a lot of good stories there from the chief. So if you see him out and about, make sure you let them know how proud we are of all the work that they're doing the Terrell Fire Department, and some great information there from the chief tonight. So we're moving on to our next guest, another face that we're familiar with. Tell our viewers who you are.
Jim Bramble, I'm the Vigo County Auditor.
Auditor Bramble, you were chief. Did you learn some things from the fire department tonight?
Very interesting discussion. It's a lot more technical and complex than
It is.
I would have imagined.
That's amazing, and that was some great insight from the chief. I think that our viewers would be, and all the members of the community, with all the efforts they're taking, and I had not realized. I'm going to be able to call the chief now if I got a headache or earache. What's going on? I mean, these paramedics. That's amazing that they've got that background. So just really another step that fire department's taken to ensure the safety of all our citizens. So you've been kind enough to be here in the past, and we talked about your background a little bit. If you would just remind our new viewers a little bit about your background as a native from Vigo County.
Well, born here 68 years ago. And,
is that right?
And
seemed like only 64 to me, but go ahead.
And been here ever since.
You've been on a few different parts of the county, haven't you?
Yeah. I grew up on Locust Street and the avenues, and I live out in Sugar Creek Township, out pretty close to the state line.
You seem to have gotten more of a affinity towards Sugar Creek area. I mean, I think that people seem to, notwithstanding all your ties from really the center of Terre Haute, really, but you're really more considered to be a Sugar Creek native. Are they just kind of adopted you? Is that what it's all about, or what? So proud of you, they just grabbed you?
They moved over there when I was with my parents when I was 17.
Okay.
Spent most of the rest of the years over there, except for, well, about 2 years in Riley when I was building a house over there.
Is that right?
So
let's talk about your educational background. You've got quite a few degrees you're touting around on the wall of your office.
I graduated from Indiana State in 1975 with a degree in political science.
Is that right?
And criminology, and then went back later and got a degree in accounting and passed the CPA exam, and I've been in the accounting business pretty much ever since then.
So were you always interested in math and accounting, or is that something that you acquired a little later?
I think probably acquired later. It was found when I did get into business school, I found it pretty fascinating, interesting.
So would you, with our viewers, is there anything with regard to the accounting field and the CPA, are there certain strengths that are better than others to have if you're going to get into that area?
Well, of course, you have to have a mathematical ability.
So a strong math background is important?
Strong math background, and it's a lot of it's related to law too.
Is that right? Well, if you want to get into accounting, is it you have to love math, or is it like I got to love math to do it, or just be good at it?
I'd say good at it.
Is that right? Okay. So have you always been good at math?
Probably in grade school and
Is that right?
high school, I was probably about average. Then as I got into college, you explore different fields and areas in college, and kind of
You must not have the same nuns. You must not have the same nuns cracking your knuckles like I did. That's why I made sure I was very astute with my math background. They kept me on task for sure. So, do you attribute to anybody particularly to your math acumen or not?
Oh, I think we had some pretty good professors at ISU.
Okay.
That, they helped you along. And
So after you got out of school, did you go to work for the State Board of Accounts?
well, I worked for an accounting firm for a couple of years here in Terre Haute.
Okay.
Then I went to work for the State Board of Accounts for about 12, 13 years.
Now, when everybody, when people say the State Board of Accounts, everybody just kind of cringes. Why is that? Is that what's that all
I think
about?
everybody cringes when the auditors come around.
Is that what it is? The auditors come around and they're like, the State Board of Accounts.
But,
Is that an actual office, the State Board of Accounts? We just throw that around and it's really somebody in the back room or something. Is it an
Yeah,
actual place?
it's a state agency.
Is it? Okay. And what do they
headed
do?
Headed by 3 members of the board, state examiner and 2 deputy state examiners. And their responsibility is auditing basically every unit of government in the state of Indiana, from the state down to the townships.
And you did that for how many years?
There were 12 or 13 years, and then I left there.
So how many counties did you go to doing that work?
I was a district supervisor here in this area, and I have about 6 counties.
Is that right? Do any of those counties let you come back into their county still, or are you not welcome in any of them?
Well, I get back around to some of them, but I've found a permanent spot here in Vigo County,
Oh, is that right?
Florida.
They don't like flatten your tires when you come out or anything like that? It's all good? All's forgotten now, or what?
It must be.
All right, well, that's good. Well,
I think
you maintained your popularity in Vigo County at least, so you decided to run for public office,
Yeah.
so that's a good thing.
Well, actually, this is my 4th term as auditor.
Is that right?
I did previously in the year 2000. I was appointed in the Democratic caucus to serve out the last year of Mayor Judy Anderson's term. She was auditor and then went to mayor. And then I was elected 2 times on my own. You can only do two terms, so I sat out. Served 4 years as treasurer, and then came back and was elected auditor again.
So what's the biggest difference between being the treasurer and the auditor? Other than the names are different, we got that,
Well,
we figured that out. See, we're pretty strapped right here.
Treasurer's primarily responsibility is they hold the money. They invest it. And
Just walk around in briefcases or something? Is that what you do? Like, here's your money.
Yeah,
Okay.
they receive the money. They're inside it, in
Okay.
charge of the receipt side of the ledger.
All right.
And the
Now, what does the auditor do?
spends the money.
Auditor spends the money.
Yeah.
Well, that's your, so,
we were the auditors, probably the chief financial officer of the county. We write the checks, maintain the ledger, do all the financial reporting.
so probably that CPA background and that State Board of Accounts background probably comes in handy with this
yeah,
job, I would say.
absolutely.
So,
So I can't say I didn't know what I was getting into.
There you go.
but
you can't say that. So what would you tell our viewers? So we got a lot of viewers from Vigo County. What would be the state of the finances in the Vigo County government?
Well, we're kind of, obviously, because of COVID, we had to make a lot of changes in the way we do business over there, and we're coming out of it now. Things are opening back up, and actually coming out pretty strong. We've got some comfortable amounts of cash in the general fund, and then the American Recovery Act will be receiving money here in the next few days or weeks from that. The county will be receiving about $20.3 million from the feds. Half of it we'll get this year and half next year.
So that's
is gonna help.
20.3 million. Okay, we'll talk about that, but before we talk about that, so people were paying their property taxes here in the last couple of weeks, is that right?
Yeah.
And so what role does the auditor play with those receipts?
Well, once again, you pay it to the treasurer, and after they've got all the individual parcels posted, they turn it all over to the auditor, and then it's the auditor's responsibility to take that big pot of cash and divide it amongst the appropriate units of government.
So that's all going
That's all going
well
on right now.
All right, that's going on right now. So you're talking about the funding that's going to come from the federal authorities. Talk to our viewers about that. That's a big deal that's gone on, and that's something that the President's made a big push for. And how does it affect particularly the county government?
Well, one of the requirements the commissioners and council and myself need to start working on is they require you to have a plan to use it. We're going to have to sit down and decide what we're going to do with it. It has to be obligated by December 31st, 2024. So we, that's plenty of time to get, do something with it, and it has to be the projects that you use it on have to be completed, I think, by December 2026. So that kind of money can be transformation. There's limits on what you can use it for. One thing any revenue reductions that we had due to COVID, it can be used to replace that. It can be used for public safety purposes, to pay any COVID-related expenses that we've had, vaccinations, testing, all that.
So that's money that will be received by the county in short order, at least half of it, is that correct?
Yeah, half of it this year and half of it May of next year.
And so would that money then be just held by the treasurer, that the treasurer's holding all the money held until this plan's been established, and then
we start implementing the plan.
Now, if you are those funds just strictly Vigo County, or those separate from funds that the city of Terre Haute?
Yeah, that's Vigo County's share. I believe the city's probably getting, I think, 38 million.
Okay.
And the school corporation's getting somewhere up in the 30 million.
So those would be separate
pots available for each of those units.
Are you aware whether the respective towns that they get some funds?
The smaller, our distribution is coming directly from the Treasury Department. And then there's another big block that goes to the state, and the state will divvy it up to smaller towns and smaller units.
So as the auditor, and then particularly with your background, the CPA, and then your background, State Board of Accounts, what do you see your role? Because this is as you say, transformational money, number one, but secondly, it's also, I don't imagine anything like this has occurred during your career, has it?
No.
So what do you see your role being as the auditor, and then with your other backgrounds that you bring to the job?
Well, my primary responsibility is to be accounting for it.
Okay.
There looks like there's going to be a significant amount of reporting to be done to the federal government.
And will that be the auditor's responsibility, you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
I don't know if you signed up for that part of the job, did you?
Yeah, that's primarily what we'll do.
Okay.
Occupies a lot of our time in that office is reporting various grants and
Okay.
different agencies that are funding county government.
So, with regard to that, is there anything that the viewers would be able to register as far as their suggestions or ideas about the use of that money, or is that something that again, collectively between yourself, the council, commissioners, that's going to be decided?
Public input's always welcome.
Okay.
You know, they can, on the county's website, vigocounty.in.gov, you can contact any of the public officials over the county. I'm sure the commissioners and council and myself are willing to listen to any ideas.
Right. Well, there's probably a lot that's been floated around, and I'm sure that given all your years in public service, that there's probably a number of things that you wish there had been funds available, so this might be an opportunity to really improve some services to the community.
Yeah, some of the items that the Treasury rules say it can be used for is housing, health care, can be used to pay for the public safety and health officers that have been fighting this battle the last year.
Now, we've had some other guests on, and they've talked about some other projects that are underway, and I know that you've had various roles in those. In particular, the fire chief was talking about downtown Terre Haute and things that happen there. There seems to be some construction going on down there right now, and maybe a street closed or thereabouts. So what's going on downtown Terre Haute at the moment?
Well, a big project down there is the convention center. And reports that I've seen from the contractor, it's about halfway completed.
Okay.
It should be open. Probably, I would not be surprised this time next year.
Now, there's a board that they've talked about associated with that. Have you had involvement with that board?
Yeah, it's Capital Improvement Board.
Okay.
I serve as the controller for that board. It's composed of appointments by the mayor and commissioners.
You wear a lot of hats, Jim. You're every other job. You've got this job and that job.
The convention center, we've hired a management company, Spectra. They're a nationwide facility management firm from Tampa.
Okay. So if I want to book a Harvest Moon dance, I just need to call them instead of you, or what?
Yeah, you need to call
them. Okay. We've seen the image. It's going to be nice. I mean, so I might want to
Yeah.
have a Halloween party or something.
They're working on that. One section of it, attractions, and there'll be a Larry Bird museum.
Is that right?
A lot of Larry's memorabilia will be on display there.
Yeah,
They envision having, after the conferences or conventions, eating cocktail parties in there.
Is that right? Okay. Really nice. That's a good idea. So is will your capacity with that board continue after the convention center is complete and open, or is that extinguished with the construction?
No, it'll be ongoing.
Okay. And then we also heard the chief talk about the casino out on State Road 46. You have any involvement with that, or any responsibilities associated with that project?
Not directly. Of course, we'll be receiving some of the tax revenue.
Talk to our viewers about that, how that all happens.
That there's a operating agreement between the casino operators and the commissioners that define how much of their revenue will go into a community type fund that'll be available for various kind of community projects. And then there's the state imposed tax revenues on casinos that will be divided between city and county and state governments. And at this point, I really don't know how much that'll amount to. But
that's based on revenue, as I take it?
And,
so
admissions to the...
I see. Okay.
But it'll be significant.
So those would be funds that would come, and again, we've got the old treasurer that's going to get to hold that money, but then the auditor's got to kind of account for it and decide how it's going to be spent. So are there limitations or restrictions on how those funds can be spent?
I don't believe so. At this point we receive some money annually from the casinos that are already open.
Oh, is that right?
I think probably $700,000 or $800,000 a year comes to the county.
Wow.
The riverboat tax, and it's a discretionary fund that can be spent for whatever the purpose the county has in mind.
So your view of the county finances for our viewers right now, would you say that things look like they're in strong position financially?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're in real good shape. I think we're in a position to do some projects that can really transform this community.
Now, this last year has been very difficult with COVID, as you said, and I know that there were some restrictions on a lot of things, but of course your office was still hard at work there, and have you found that there's been anything in particular that's been more difficult than another in trying to do your job and with the county finances with COVID?
Probably the difficult part of it was just the fact that the building was closed for a year. We had to we did everything, all our interactions with the public were by appointment. Meetings that we had were via Zoom or the internet, which it works, but I prefer face-to-face.
There you go. So moving forward, where were we with the finances? Are you now in the process of meeting with county council, the budget committees? How are those things progressing right now for your office?
That's going to be coming up here in the next few weeks.
Okay.
We'll start collecting budget proposals from all the departments and assembling them. In August, we'll start getting revenue projections for next year that are provided by the state, and
So it doesn't sound like too much downtime in the auditor's office or the Bramble household in the month of, you just get through tax season and then we're into
another.
All right. So any other words that you'd like to pass along to our viewers about the financial health of Vigo County?
Well, I think over the years we've been running a pretty conservative shop and managed balanced budget every year that I've been there. Had some surpluses over the years that have enabled us to weather this storm we've had this past year and come out in pretty good shape.
Right. I assume all your experience and background sure have been helpful in trying to do that job.
I don't know where I would have been without it.
I think you're right. So I know that there's a lot of other office heads and office holders that concur and appreciate all your experience and information in this way, and some may not be quite as strong in the math field as you are. So that's, I assume, been a big help to you in doing your job and helping other people maybe do their job.
Actually, the math part of it's getting a lot easier because the computer does all.
Is that it? That's all you're. Okay, there you go. So if our viewers are trying to get a hold of you or the auditor's office, what's the best way to get a hold of you, Jim?
812-462-3361 is the phone number, or you can email me at james.bramble@vigocounty.in.gov.
And if people are wanting to see the auditor, they're able to walk into that building now and just come in and see. So the counters are full and everybody's working. So we appreciate you coming in. It's been a delight. We have you back on the chat. And the chief, it was a real delight to have him here. So until our next chat, everybody be safe and we will see you.
Everything you need to know about the Vigo down the hall. So sit back, relax, and